الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. صدق الله العظيم. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Shu'ara, يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. That the day of judgment is the day on which neither wealth nor children will benefit. إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم, except the one who comes to Allah with a sound heart, who brings with them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day a sound and a healthy heart, a sound and healthy and in a good condition spiritual heart. Those are the people who will be able to be successful. And in fact, those are the people for whom their associations will also bring them benefit. That mal in banun, your wealth and your children, will actually benefit you if you are someone that is of a sound heart and you acted accordingly. Your actions were illuminated and guided by your sound heart, and so that's how you raised your children, and that is how you spent your wealth. So your banun and your mal, it is implied in the ayah, will actually benefit you if the condition of the heart that you have is sound. يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. And so, if we reflect on this ayah and we internalize it, it is actually a remedy for most of the ills of the human society, of all our conditions that we are in currently, we can find the cure and the solution in this ayah, which says that the condition of the heart illuminates your actions, guides your actions, and then your actions is what makes what tells a story of who you are, and your actions are what will form the society around you. A family, a community, a society, a nation. What's going on in these is a reflection of the condition of the hearts of the individuals that constitute these groups. At the very essential level, that's what it is. So anything that you see, any kind of undercurrents that you see, any trends that you see in any group, is at the very essential, basic level, a reflection of what's going on in their hearts and what kind of conditions their hearts are in. And so because of what's going on with the heart and what kind of actions these hearts lead to, our akhirah and what happens to all of us on the day of judgment is also determined by the condition of the heart. And so one of the scholars has said, in defining this qalbun salim, the sound heart, the spiritual heart that's sound, he says that a qalbun salim, a sound heart, is a heart which is clean from any doubts when it comes to certainty that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any revelation that brings certitude and certainty about things like the unseen, about things like your rizq, and about things like the future. A person with a sound heart has no doubts about those. So a person with a sound heart has tawakkul, because they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responsible to provide for me, and He's not going to abandon me. وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. The rizq is something that's predetermined, it's guaranteed. One way or another, as long as you're meant to live, you will have the means and the provisions. And so while you do understand that you live in a world of asbab and means, and you make your effort, at the very core of your heart, you don't rely on your job, on the next gig, on the contract, on the next paycheck. That's not where your reliance is. Your reliance is on Allah Azza wa Jal. Your reliance is on the fact that Allah has guaranteed that He will provide for us. وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. And so a sound heart does not have doubts about these things. Does not have doubts about angels, about the Anbiya, about the hell and heaven, about all of the things that are to come, about which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has informed us, but which we cannot comprehend. We can't wrap our heads around certain things of the unseen. That's exactly the point of Iman, to have no shubha, no doubts about the certainties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has informed us about. So that's the first thing, the first quality of a sound heart. The second quality is to have no motivation and desire to go astray from the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when it comes to your desires and shahawat, there is pressure on us, internal and external. Internal because we have certain physiological inner movers that move us towards things that are forbidden. External, the peer pressure and the societal pressures that move us and push us in certain directions. These things they were able to overcome because they come against the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They know that if I commit certain sins, which I'm free to do, which no one can prevent me from, yet I will fight back and be resolute and strong against my shahawat, against all these inner and outer pressures, purely because there's an amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, don't do this, la taqrabu zina, don't go close to fornication and adultery, don't steal, don't cheat, things like that. The kaba'ir, the things that are haram. You don't do any of those things if you have a sound heart. So you're able to be strong and fight back against these desires and these factors that push you towards disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then a sound heart, number 3, is a heart that doesn't will what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not willed. A sound heart is pleased with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sound heart, regardless of how things are, whether things are good or bad, pleasing or not very pleasing, whether things are very difficult and bitter, or things are very good and they are very pleasing to them, regardless of what's happening. At the human level, when there is suffering, there is pain, of course. And when there is abundance, there is joy. But deep down, this person of the sound heart is pleased with the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ الرِّضَى بِالْقَضَاء, right? And so this is the third quality of a sound heart. And lastly, a sound heart is free from anything that cuts off from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sound heart does not allow and does not host any desires, any likes or dislikes, any motivations for those things that cut you off from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's a beautiful way of explaining the various aspects of a sound heart. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. And about this sound heart, Martin Luther King actually alludes to it, and he says that when it comes to fighting against injustice, what we need to do is to go through a 4-step process. The first step is to ascertain and to make sure that we are not making it up and that there is an actual injustice going on. when it comes to fighting against injustice, ascertain that there is injustice. So you do your research and you build your knowledge and your certainty about this injustice. And then the second step is to negotiate, to speak truth to power, and to bring this up with those who are causing the oppression and injustice to remedy the situation. And then the third step, because now they're not listening to you, you're trying to negotiate, you're trying to bring equality and resolve the injustices and move away oppression from society. It's not happening, they're not cooperating, and most of the time the oppressors won't do it. Then the third step you would think is now you have to take direct action, but that's not what he says. Martin Luther King says that then you go through the step of self-purification. Self-purification. You purify yourself internally as an individual to see what your intention is. Because if the intention of the oppressed people is to take the place of the oppressors, then this whole effort, this whole movement is useless. It's better for this resistance not to exist at all. Because all you're doing is changing roles. You're putting the oppressed where the oppressors are currently, and you want to put the oppressors where the oppressed are. That's not divine. That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. That's not justice. And so self-purification as an individual, self-purification as communities, right? When you are seeking justice, for example, for minorities here in the United States, individually in our smaller communities, are we implementing those ideals that we are fighting for, that we claim to be fighting for? If we're not just in our own smaller communities, in our own families, then we're not ready to fight against injustice in the larger society. We have to address this first, because it's the most important thing is that this step, regardless of the outcome of your next step, this step itself is worth it to purify us as individuals, to purify us as communities, to force us to be self-reflective and to look at our own blind spots and to see in how many different ways are we exactly, and we're acting exactly like the oppressors of the larger society. And so this third step of self-purification is meant to do that, to remedy what's going on within our own selves, within our own society, and within our own communities. And then the last step, Martin Luther King says, is the step of direct action. Then you take direct action. And it takes various forms. But that can only be effective like it was in his case and with his movement, is because a lot of people in the civil rights movement, they went through that process. That the genius of this movement was that it was not seeking superiority for the oppressed, but rather equality, but rather justice for all. And that third step has to do with, and is connected to the idea of the sound heart in Islam, the sound heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us about in the Quran. And it's interesting to notice that in the Quran, qalbun salim is mentioned twice, if I can remember correctly. And so this first time it's mentioned, Surah Al-Shu'ara, is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Day of Judgment, and He says that on the Day of Judgment, the only thing that will benefit you is a sound heart. The second time it's mentioned is in relation to Ibrahim alayhi salam. إِذْ جَاءَ رَبَّهُ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. That, remember the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam when he came to his Lord with a sound heart. Only two times. One time is general, what is the benefit of the sound heart and how important it is that you have a sound heart and that your hereafter entirely depends on this sound heart. Your station on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is entirely dependent on having this sound heart. And the second time, it's Ibrahim alayhi salam is mentioned as somebody who has this sound heart. And so, if we really want to know a person that had a sound heart, and of course, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba, so many good people, past and present, they are in possession of the sound heart. But there's a hikmah, Allah knows best, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Ibrahim alayhi salam was someone who came to Allah with a sound heart. And that hikmah is for us to reflect on Ibrahim alayhi salam, his legacy in his life, to reflect on what kind of person he was. And among many of his qualities, one of the attributes that's recurrent in the Quran is that Ibrahim alayhi salam had forbearance. He had immense compassion. His heart was filled with mercy and compassion. You see him making dua for his father, who was not a believer. You see him being so worried about the people of Lut. يُجَادِلُنَا فِي قَوْمِ لُوط. He was talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the people of Lut out of compassion and mercy that he had. Even for those people that were doomed to be punished, he had this compassion for them. Inna Ibrahim la halimun awwahum munib. The Quran talks about his hilm, his softness, his gentleness. And so one of the most important attributes of a heart that is sound is that it is a heart that is full of mercy, and especially merciful towards those who are deemed to be misguided, the people who are committing acts of disobedience, people who are not following the laws. That a person of sound heart does not curse them, does not try to eliminate them, doesn't do any of those things, but rather has mercy and compassion for them. Like Ma'ruf al-Karhi, rahimahullah, he saw a group of people on a ship, and they were all partying, and they were drunk and having fun and boisterous music and noise and everything. And he saw this along with his companions. And so some of the companions looked at them and said, look at these people who are so neglectful. These are the people who are cursed, and Allah knows what else they said about them. Ma'ruf al-Karhi looked at them, and he raised his hands towards the heaven, and he said, Ya Allah, أسعدهم في الآخرة كما أسعدتهم في الدنيا. Ya Allah, the way you have made them so happy, and the way they are enjoying in this world, allow them to enjoy and be happy in the hereafter. That's the dua he made for them. And so his companions were like, what? We were expecting you to make dua against them, that Allah destroys them. But he said, no. this dua that I made for them, that Ya Allah make them happy in the hereafter like they're happy here, we all know that that is only possible if Allah were to guide them. So my dua was actually a dua of guidance for them. My dua was actually a dua of guidance for them, because Iblis wants them to go to Jahannam. And so if you also make the same dua, then you're actually helping him. And so the sound heart, one of the most important attributes of it, as exemplified by the qualities of Ibrahim alayhi salam, by various events in his life, is that a sound heart is not a judgmental heart. A sound heart is a heart full of love and compassion and wants nothing but khair and good for everyone. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst the people who possess قلب سليم, a sound heart. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين واستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين وأعز الإسلام والمسلمين وانصر المستضعفين في كل مكان يا رب العالمين. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها أنت وليها ومولاها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا واغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولمشائخنا ولجميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم لا تدع لنا في ساعتنا هذه ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا كربا إلا نفسته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة إلا قضيتها يا رب العالمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. قوموا إلى صلاتكم رحمكم الله. لا إله إلا الله. استووا رحمكم الله. الله أكبر. سبحانك الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر بسم الله الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله استغفر الله استغفر الله اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت ربنا وتعالى تقبل الله may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. Please don't forget to donate whatever you can on your way out. جزاكم الله خير.
Assalamu alaikum. Just some announcements for this weekend, brothers and sisters. inshallah, on this evening we have the Teen Social. It's an ice cream social and game night for teens at Makespace headquarters. That starts at 7. And on Sunday we are also working with a few partners to host a program here at the fire station to host Afghan refugees for Thanksgiving, inshallah. So there is a need for volunteers for that. If you would like to sign up, the information is available through our newsletter and website. And then, inshallah, in the coming week, we will have dhikr on Monday at Makespace headquarters and upcoming events. If you have any questions about anything, please head to the back table, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Luckily, we have all the names. This one was really awesome.